9th District Intern, and welcome to another episode of Candidate Conversations. Today, I am lucky enough to be joined by Andy Ruff for a special edition. So Andy Ruff is a native resident of Southern Indiana and candidate for Congress in the 9th District. Andy has deep roots in the 9th District, having both been born and raised here and also raising his family here. He's also dedicated to giving back to his community as a high school teacher and as Bloomington's longest serving city council member. In Andy's 20 years on the city council, he fought for progressive change within Bloomington, fighting against dark money in politics, ensuring that large corporations don't take jobs out of Indiana, and many other issues protecting Hoosiers' rights and freedoms. Outside of politics, Andy is an avid fisherman and musician, and his musical talents have marked his congressional run with his infamous song, The Ballad of Tennessee Trey. Andy, I'd like to thank you for joining me today.
I'm happy to be with you, and you're not the one who's lucky to have me as a guest. I'm lucky to be running as a Democratic candidate for the 9th District for Congress, and I'm lucky to have people like folks like you who are interested in reaching out and connecting with me to provide an opportunity for others who might view this interview to get to know and understand me a little better.
Well, we're lucky to have candidates like you fighting for us. So I always like to start off these interviews by asking what inspired you to run for office.
Well, there was an issue in my community, and I saw that this proposed wrong-headed, harmful, wasteful, giant speculative development project in the community as a threat to the well-being, the economic and long-term well-being and quality of life for ordinary folks in the community. Whereas it may have benefited a few significantly and enriched a few, it would have been at the cost of negative impacts on the larger community and ordinary folks in that community. And so I got this the place where I've lived my entire life, and the effects, in my view, extended far beyond just my community, but to all the area of Southern Indiana where I've spent my entire life, right? So I was activated and motivated strongly to do everything I could to try and protect my community and my part of Indiana from, like I say, this wrong-headed, harmful, speculative project that I saw as a threat to harm my community and my part of the state. And I got very actively involved, and from there it led to running for elected office, and now here I am today running for Congress.
That's incredible. It's always really inspiring to me to see people that stand up for the community that they know and love. And I really appreciate people like you that are representing us. So my second question, you were the longest serving member of the Bloomington City Council, and you've been a proponent of progressive politics your whole career. What accomplishments from your time on the City Council are you most proud of?
Well, it's true that in my last term on the council, I was the longest serving member. But a few years before that, a member who had more total years than me resigned from council, but his terms were broken. In other words, they weren't consecutive. He'd served and then not served and then served. But for total consecutive years, yes, I was the longest serving consecutive years member of the Bloomington City Council. And I'm probably most, I hate to use the word proud because it's not me. I worked with community groups, with not-for-profits, and with organized labor organizations, and all public interest groups and concerned citizens on all these initiatives to in an effort to make the community better. So to the extent that I would say I'm proud of them, I don't know if that's the right word, but what I feel like were the most impactful things that I did. That if someone asked me about what the most important things I thought I did on council, what I would say. Probably the living wage ordinance we passed way back in 2005 was and still is by far the farthest reaching living wage ordinance in the state of Indiana. Nothing else is even close in terms of its reach. In Indiana, we're limited to how far we can, a municipal government, a local government can mandate a wage floor. We're much more limited than, say, states like New Mexico or California. But we're limited by state laws, state constitution, but we pushed as far as we absolutely could. So I'm very proud of that, and worked with all kinds of community groups and concerned citizens to develop that over a course of a couple of years, and then work to get that passed over the screams and hollers of a lot of people in the community, including some professors from IU in the Department of Economics, including our local Chamber of Commerce and our local economic development organization. So, I'm very proud of that. Probably my work for sustainable transportation is also something I think was really important, and I really worked hard on year after year after year. Then my pro-labor initiatives, and that were always, I was always trying to find any way I could to locally strengthen organized labor. And, I passed a responsible bidder ordinance working with the IBEW, the electrical workers. Worked with them closely. They approached me to pass a responsible bidder ordinance, which is a local law aimed at trying to prevent bad actor contractors from undercutting high road employers that do take care of their employees and provide and pay all the benefits and wages and comply with all laws, and prevent them from getting undercut by shortchanged firms that might underbid because they're low road employers. Did that, included the organized labor as a community partner in our community plan, our comprehensive plan for the city of Bloomington. When I looked at it, when we were supposed to review it and approve it after 10 years, it gets renewed every 10 years. I noticed there was a lot of discussion about educational institutions, about business, particularly about business, about not-for-profits, but nothing in there about organized labor as being a critical community partner in strengthening our community and making our community better and stronger and more resilient, and a better place to live with a higher quality of life for everybody. And so I worked hard to amend that document to get organized labor put in and recognized that way. And then another thing I would say was important that I did was I was always, over 20 years, demonstrated a healthy skepticism towards local tax subsidies to large, profitable, distantly headquartered corporations. I think I hold the City of Bloomington City Council record for the most no votes to tax abatements to large corporations. That was, I always ask hard questions and had a healthy skepticism as to whether we should be granting these tax subsidies to these profitable corporations, particularly the distantly headquartered ones. So those would probably be the things I would point to.
Definitely, as a college student, that's so inspiring to hear, especially standing up to so many members of the community who are often opposed to you, and standing up to the interests of big corporations. That's obviously, for my age group, it's really inspiring to see politicians fighting for those things. So thank you for demonstrating that for your entire career.
Well, I hope you'll take up where you and other young folks like you will take up where we left off.
Anyway, for my third question, moving a little bit away from politics, what significance does music have in your life, and why did you choose to make it such an important part of your campaign?
Well, interestingly, this past Sunday, we did a campaign concert. We've been trying to do these campaign concerts, kind of like in the movie, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, which is the old barnstorming campaign tours, stops in towns where there was music and some speechifying. We did one of those in Bedford this past weekend, and we did it at a venue which was a WPA built during the WPA, by the WPA during the Great Depression in the mid to late 1930s. And on the back of it, there was an inscription in the limestone at this big band shell, this half shell for band performance. And I'm not sure if it was from ancient Greek. It didn't tell who the quote was from, or when it was from, or where, or who said it. But it said basically something to the effect that music is the art form that can calm the agitations of the soul, right? And I think we are engaged in, our soul. We are soul searching in this country right now for what we stand for, what we represent, what we mean, and what kind of country we're going to be, both for our own citizens and our own people and throughout the world. We are soul searching right now. And I saw that quote when I went around the back of the venue and we had our concert this weekend on Sunday. And, it got me to thinking, that's the essence of it for me. Music is a universal language that can serve to open up an otherwise closed door with people, because political discussion can cause a wall or instant dismissiveness between people oftentimes when a political discussion comes up. But music with a political message, even though it has a political message, can often keep that door open, just cracked, just long enough that a connection can be made with people, right? And then once that connection has been made, then that can lead to engagement on a deeper level, on a political issue, that then can lead to discovery of common interest, common humanity, and common ground, right? That otherwise you wouldn't be able to get to, because when you just bring it up as a political issue in a discussion or a debate, boom, the wall goes up. But music can sometimes just open that crack in the door. And you get in, and then that provides the opportunity to discover some common ground, some common humanities, common interests. And so it's a way, I believe, to help bridge the divide, which we have in this country right now, and we have to figure out ways to bridge the divide. Music is one of those things that I think can help us with that. And that's why I have made such an important part of my campaign.
That's such a powerful message, and I definitely agree with that, and I've seen that, and it's wonderful that you get to bring that passion into your campaign. And so I just have one more final question. How do you believe that your opponent has failed in representing this district, and how do you think that you'll better serve your constituency?
Well, I'm going to give you a few statistics on this, because this question calls for that. I believe, even though he claims otherwise, I believe our current representative, Trey Hollingsworth, has failed the economy. He's failed the economy in the 9th district for ordinary people. Rich people like themselves, extremely obscenely wealthy folks like him, have done just fine, right? But Hollingsworth has failed, even though he claims that his business experience has made him a good steward of the 9th district's economy. I disagree entirely. A couple examples. Job growth in the district to Hollingsworth's predecessor, Todd Young, right, was 46% higher. And it wasn't just a national downturn. So Hollingsworth can't say, well, the whole nation's economy went down. That is not true. Other districts in Indiana and the nation as a whole did far better in job growth during Hollingsworth's tenure than the 9th district in Indiana has. And like I said, specifically 46% higher in the preceding terms under the preceding incumbent, or the preceding representative, who was a Republican, but actually did live in Bloomington at the time. And he was connected in here in the district, unlike what I would say about Mr. Hollingsworth. Also, in the recent federal government pandemic relief packages, where there were no interest and low interest loans available to help small business weather this economic storm, weather this economic downturn, small businesses in the 9th district, 36% got small business loans through these programs, whereas the rest of Indiana averaged twice that amount. The district to our east, District 6, I believe it's Greg Pence's district, got their small business rate of loans, obtaining loans, was in the 70-some%. And the district to our immediate west was mid to high 60-some%, right? In the 9th district was 36% got small business loans. And I think that's because it illustrates he's not present. Our current Representative Trey Hollingsworth, he's not connected. He didn't have staff out there. He wasn't out there in these communities in our district, finding out what people needed, finding out what small businesses needed assistance, guiding them on how to navigate the process to get loans. He wasn't there. So I would say he's failed our district economically because of lack of connection, lack of presence, lack of care. Right? I would be just the opposite. I've spent my entire life literally in this district. I know the communities, I know the people, I know the land, and I would not let those things happen. Right? I would not let us, compared to other districts in the rest of the country, be disadvantaged economically. I would be working with the communities and with businesses and with the needs because I'm there all the time. I'm here, I'm connected in ways that he'll never be. Then he's failed to lead on the pandemic. Back early in the spring, he said we needed to just reopen the economy. We just needed to reopen, even though there was no plan. There was no plan how to safely do that in place, right? And there's an economic implication of that too. You do that, and what's going to happen? Well, you're going to have outbreaks like they did at that meatpacking plant up in Logansport, where they had like 80% of the people got it, and they just had to shut right back down. So, to say that we needed, in order to, we had to sacrifice our health and human lives in order to get the economy back open, that was absurd, because that's not what could happen anyway. Opening without a plan, without safety in place, without protocols, without adequate personal protective gear, without an analysis of how we could do this safely, it's just going to crash the economy again, stop the economy again. So it was totally boneheaded and totally thoughtless. And then as a role model on it, he's been terrible. He just got reprimanded in the last couple of weeks. I don't know if you know this, like 2 weeks ago, he got reprimanded on the Senate floor for violating the mask protocols, for not wearing a mask on the Senate floor. So he's not setting an example as a leader. He's part of the whole Trump administration, Republican, completely inconsistent message, downplaying of the importance of things, confusing information to people to where it's undermined the whole approach of consistency and getting people to understand what we need to do, the basic things we need to do to weather this pandemic and to get through it. And so he's completely failed. He's completely failed on this. And turns out he got COVID. He had it. He was infected. Did you not know that?
No, I didn't know that.
And he did not, he got it back in March or April. He didn't tell anyone for like 2 or 3 months. And so this is exactly an illustration of his selfishness and of the problem. I mean, did he not think that people who had contact with him might need to know that information so that they could make their own decision about whether they wanted to be around their family members, elderly parents, whether they need to be tested? They couldn't do tracing and testing and tracing on contacts of his because he didn't come out with it. He announced it months later and then tried to put a smiley face on it by going and giving plasma. Like, see, I'm doing the right thing. This is an illustration of his failure, again, to adhere to believe the guidance of experts, epidemiologists, health professionals, scientists, right? I would be very different. I would follow the guidance of those who know what we need to do to get through this tragic period, this pandemic, right? And Hollingsworth has shown a complete failure to do that and complete disregard for people's safety. Another thing about Hollingsworth and that whole thing about people should just go back to work because loss of life is not as significant as loss of economic gains. Hollingsworth is so rich that even if he was completely uninsured, which he's not, he's got public government health care, of course, for him and his family. But even if he was totally uninsured, there is no medical bill that Trey Hollingsworth could get that could phase him, that would cause his family any financial stress. He's that wealthy, right? And so he just has no concept. An ordinary person, an ordinary Hoosier, uninsured or underinsured, gets COVID or gives it to someone in their family, who has to spend 2 weeks in an ICU unit in a hospital, do you know what the bills would be like for a 2-week stay, which is commonplace for people who get it and get really sick? Spend 2 weeks in an ICU in a hospital somewhere in Indiana? That would bankrupt. That would financially destroy that family, right? Hollingsworth, he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. His father's like a billionaire, right? This is not something that he ever crosses his mind because he's never had to. He's never had to think about it. He's never experienced any concern or anxiety over this kind of a financial issue, financial concern. So, that's the opposite of me. I'm an ordinary person with an ordinary income, an ordinary family, or an ordinary experience growing up in my community in Indiana. And then the third thing is that I would say the major difference that's illustrated by our current happenings in our country right now, is the idea that to deal with the civil unrest we have in this country right now that's resulted from the protests over police violence, etc. Hollingsworth is all about, we just encouraging people to arm themselves, lock their doors, bring in more police and the military even. That's his whole view of this. Instead of acknowledging that there are problems out there that have motivated people to protest, to take action, because they have no other alternative left. And that is constitutionally protected for people to protest in this country, right? And that a few examples of rioting or looting does not mean that we toss out the constitutionally protected right of protest in this country to fix problems, major serious problems in the country. So unlike Hollingsworth, who's out there encouraging people to just arm themselves and lock their doors and get more police in and use the military, my approach is much different. I would use my voice as a congressional representative, as a congressman, to try to tap into the passion for fairness and justice that we all have as Americans, right? Instead of trying to exaggerate and inflame and the tendency to stoke fear about violence like Hollingsworth has, I would use my voice, my role, to tap into the sense of fairness and justice, social justice that we have as Americans, right? That and make sure that people understand that, yes, of course, we need peaceable protest, right? But these are legitimate, valid issues in our country that undermine the promise of equal justice under the law for everyone. And that it's understandable why certain groups would feel compelled to take the actions of protest that they've taken. That would be my approach, to use my role as a congressman to help tap into that sense of fairness and justice as Americans that we have, rather than try to inflame and stoke fear and resort to guns and hiding in our homes and using the military and this is another major difference between Hollingsworth and myself, in a place where I feel like he's failed America. He's failed the country. He's failed Indiana. He's failed the 9th District. And I would not do that.
Absolutely. I am totally with you there. From a constituent perspective, Hollingsworth does not represent us. He doesn't know the issues that affect Hoosiers. He's not even from here. He doesn't show himself here. We need more people like you that are honest, decent, and actually care.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for talking to me.
So those are all the questions.
Good.
Yeah, of course. Those are all the questions that I have, but I really appreciate you for running. I really appreciate the values that you're running on. And I just really appreciate you being here tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hope to see you sometime after the pandemic eases up again.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Nice talking to you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.